Black Ops 6 is setting up our set crew to go after Edward Richtofen, otherwise known as the Director. And sure, he threw them all in jail at the end of Cold War and they want revenge. However, for a few characters, this runs deeper, especially for Gregory Weaver. However, Weaver is not as innocent as you might believe. This is Weaver's dark history with Edward Richtofen. This history begins back in Cold War. Through the various intel that you could pick up through the actual maps themselves, we have a diary entry from Samantha Maxis. Official diary entry number 1. I'm writing it down. Not because I don't know what happened, but so that others will. My name is Maxis. Samantha Maxis. I know you're reading this, Weaver, and I know you feel the same guilt I do about the boy. I promised I would keep him safe, but we both failed him. The last thing I expected was for you to move as quickly as you did. The operation never should have happened. If I had known the steps you would take, I would not have told you the location. The house was supposed to be safe. We both feel the guilt, but I will always blame myself more than you. Clearly, this is speaking about an operation that went wrong, and we get more information about it in Quarantine Diary 9. I remember waiting for your call. 10, 11, 12. The phone never rang. Instead, I saw news of the explosion on TV. I couldn't sleep. 3 a.m., I heard a knock at my apartment door. You gave the keyword, and I let you in. We'd never met face to face before. It was a shock to finally meet you. You were in a bad way. I did my best to dress your wounds, but it was the first and only time I ever saw you cry. You mumbled something about not knowing, about how sorry you were. You torched the place to cover your tracks after the hit. You said the boy was supposed to be staying with his mother, but he wasn't. He was there, in the house, while it burned to the ground. Now, between these two pieces of intel, we can clearly paint the picture of what happened. Weaver was contracted through someone to carry out a hit. Now, after he believed the hit was done, in order to cover his tracks, he burned the house to the ground. Unfortunately, there was a little boy in the house that was supposed to be staying with his mother, but instead, they were at the house that burned down. Now, while this is not confirmed, it is heavily implied that this child was the child of the director, Edward Richtofen. We know Richtofen had a family because at the end of the Forsaken cutscene, you could see on his desk a photo of him, his wife, and his child. Additionally, there are some scars on Richtofen's face and neck that people can make out, and so we believe that the hit that Weaver was trying to carry out was on Richtofen himself. And in order to cover his tracks, he then burned the house to the ground, which then resulted in killing his son and his wife. Now, clearly, Weaver and Maxis are just completely guilt-ridden over this entire situation. However, they are still responsible for the accidental death of someone's kid, and potentially Richtofen's kid, who we know from another intel is named Samuel. So of course, Richtofen threw everybody in jail at the end of Cold War, and from what we know of Weaver, Weaver is incredibly guilt-ridden, not only over this, but over getting everybody arrested and thrown in jail. Obviously, that was still Richtofen's fault, the director's grand scheme, of course, but this just compounds on the guilt that Weaver has over this entire situation. And this event, the loss of his son, must be so motivating for Richtofen. We are theorizing that that is what this entire Project Janus is all about. After all, Janus is the god of doorways and passageways. So while we may be looking at Richtofen as this evil villain coming up with schemes and executing these terrible plans, he might just be a man trying to get back his son. Perhaps he's looking into the dark ether to find his son's soul. Maybe he's trying to go back into the dark ether and somehow go back in time and save his family. I'm so excited to see how these characters interact, especially because we have a set crew. And if you want to hear even more speculation about Project Janus and the Black Ops 6 Zombies storyline, be sure to check out my trailer breakdown right here. And as always, stay beautiful.